I've been taking pictures and making movies most of my life. The first shot in this book is of my mom and dad. It's one of the earliest and probably my favorite. The shot was taken with my dad's Nikon. I started taking pictures with it in high school. I set up a darkroom and would lose track of time developing and printing for hours and hours, listening to FM radio in the red safe light. I must say I never really enjoyed developing negatives. It's probably the most important part of the whole process, but what I loved was the printing. Watching those images come out of the soup, seeing that proof sheet of pictures I'd taken weeks before and forgotten all about, that's what I loved. To this day, looking at a proof sheet for the first time is like opening a Christmas present I've given to myself. To feel the moment of the picture all over again. Most of the other photographs in this book were taken with a wide lux camera. Instead of a traditional shutter, it has a slit that, as the lens pans, exposes the film. It's been a minute since we've done that, and I will tell you, it felt good. What's up, everybody? Peter McKinnon here, and welcome to the first episode of Book Club. Now, don't worry. This isn't gonna be academic or lame, or I did not do well with academics, or would never have been part of something called Book Club. But alas, 2024, here we are. Peter McKinnon hosting a book club. Who would have thought? My parents are probably so proud. In trying to evolve my craft and become a better artist and photographer, one of the things I did was starting to look to books for inspiration. One, it stopped me from scrolling endlessly on social media. Two, I was able to find new photographers that I didn't even know existed. Three, I love looking at pictures and reading the stories about each image. You see, captions back when Instagram was new and fresh, I felt like people took more time to write more stories about their photos or experiences or what they were sharing online. That's not so much the case anymore, I find, but you still get plenty of stories within someone's photo book. So we thought it would be fun to start a new series where we make coffee, feature a different blend, and feature a different photo book. Smash those two things together, and you've got Pete's Book Club. Can't forget the shell light, dude. Shell light. Is it weird? Before we dive in, we've got some James Coffee Ethiopia in the cup today with a little Kalita Wave pour over. It felt good to get coffee back in my shop and making it myself again for me and the captain. Cheers, bud. All right, just like the old days. Where do I even start with Jeff Bridges' pictures? There's so many places to start. We'll start with one that, yes, this is the actor, Jeff Bridges, who's been in movies since, well, for me, like the beginning of time. What that's done for Jeff is put him in situations, environments, and positions to shoot incredibly unique photographs because he's able to bring his camera to set. That gives him a very unique perspective of things to photograph. And I think that's what makes this so interesting. Seeing familiar faces, seeing other actors, the behind the scenes, the peek behind the curtain that you don't otherwise get to see from a very talented photographer. Jeff Bridges he's a great photographer. If you didn't know, now you know. And he uses the wide lux camera. We made a video about that a month or two ago. That was inspired from this book. After seeing these images, I had to find a wide lux camera. And I can say since then, it has become probably my most used camera of the last few months since receiving it. That's a level of inspiration I haven't got from scrolling social media. Again, I'm not trying to dog on it. It's my career. I've built my career. I'm very grateful for social media. But turning to books to find my inspiration instead has been amazing. Let's take a look at Pictures Volume 1. First off, the layout of this book is absolutely phenomenal. The proof sheets that he talks about in the foreword are scattered throughout the beginning and the end of this book, and you can see all of his markings and selections and notes, and that gives you a really nice personal feel into the creative process that he must have gone through when selecting which images to use for this book, which is a very long and lengthy process. Ask me how I know. Now, what's cool about this camera is it has a fixed focus. There's only 3 shutter speeds, and most of the time you're just kind of winging it. With not a lot of options and not a lot of flexibility, it kind of takes a lot of the technical out of photography and puts you more in the moment, and that's what I've really enjoyed about it. That's what really shines in this book. There are a series of portraits in this book that were really interesting, and I couldn't wrap my head around how it was being done. It's portrait of someone where he exposes them twice, so you get 2 pictures of someone on 1 negative. And Kirk actually came downstairs and opened the book and looked at it and was like, oh, he's just moving physically as the camera's panning so that he can capture the portrait twice. And Kirk was right. He took 5 seconds, figured it out. And it's a super creative way to get a portrait and get 2 expressions out of somebody in 1 photo. Throughout this book, he's got different portraits of different actors. I think it's a really unique way of capturing people too that became kind of his staple.
You're gonna frown and look that way with your eyes. And then when I say shift, as fast as you can, smile and look that way.
Okay.
Shift!
Maybe Kirk watched that before he told me. He didn't, he's just smart. Before we go further, we'll pay some bills real quick and thank Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Jeff Bridges could use a Squarespace website. He could sell his books on his Squarespace website. I plan to sell my book on my Squarespace website. Now, if you're a photographer and you want to sell prints and your books or your services or book client meetings, all of the things that pertain to being a business owner as a photographer, you can get that up and running before the day's over by using Squarespace. They have a super easy all-in-one platform and they have all sorts of great SEO tools built in. So if you are doing events or you're a local photographer and you're trying to get recognized and you're trying to get more work, those SEO tools will help you with that. Their new blueprint system is also a personalized experience that helps you get up and running with a custom site. And that's where you can choose from professionally curated layouts, styling options, and that's what gets you that creative presence from the ground up. My favorite thing is that it's optimized for every device because there's so many things coming out all the time. Screen sizes are different, monitors are different, tablets, it's a mess, but that's all optimized so it looks good no matter who's looking at it, no matter what they're looking at it on. Lots of easy checkout options, flexible payments. If you are selling products, that's good. And you can book appointments. So if you are a photographer and you want to do a consultation, you want to have someone be able to go into your website, choose a time and book an appointment, that's cool. Those things start coming into the inbox. You can manage the whole system, the whole business from that back end. I can save you 10% by using code McKinnon at checkout. So head over to squarespace.com/McKinnon, hit that code, get that discount, and get that website online before the end of the day. Speaking of which, I could probably use an update on my website now. We can write that down on the whiteboard. I think my favorite picture in this book is of Barbra Streisand, 1996. The use of a mirror. When I saw this portrait for the first time, I thought it was 2 separate photos of Barbara. He's capturing the reflection in the mirror, and the wide lux pans over to her in real life standing in front of the mirror. So you get that portrait twice without moving anything. There's a certain immersion with the wide lux camera that really makes you feel like you're being inserted to the frame. Be it that it's a landscape or a portrait, I've never seen photos that make me feel more than the wide lux. And not to say that feel something emotionally, but feel present in the photograph. I've never been transported to that place more than when I see one of these panoramic photos. That's obviously not just the wide lux. There's lots of different panoramic cameras, the X-Pan being one of the most popular, if not the most popular. It really stops you in your tracks. Here's another super creative use of a wide lux. We know that it pans left to right, but what if you turned the camera vertically and panned bottom to top? I found myself enamored with the numerous ways you could creatively compose a picture that I haven't thought about or seen before. Now, when I talk about Jeff being in certain situations where most of us aren't finding ourselves in on a daily basis, because we're not actors on sets with crazy budgets being able to shoot these things, and that's not to say his life is easy or that's why he's able to get these things, not at all. But wow, does it ever make them miraculous. Look at this. If you saw this photo blown up in my office on the wall with no context, you would look at that and think, what is happening? Where is this pirate ship? Why are there 3 guys overboard swimming towards it? The sea is raging. Where were you to get this photo? Why is it so wide? There's so many questions. It's unbelievable. Some of these pictures, Jeff has handwritten notes to what's been going on in the picture, which I like. We shot parts of White Squall on the island of Malta. There was a huge tank there. You could create the illusion of being at sea by lining up the edge of the tank with the horizon of the real ocean. It's a tank. I was today years old when I realized I've never read that excerpt before. They used jet engines and giant fans to make hurricane force winds and dumped massive amounts of ocean water down these slides on top of us. That's so cool. I almost drowned out there. It wasn't so much the water, as inhaling all of that damn jet fuel. That's crazy. See, what a great story. Here's a wide of that tank lined up with the horizon of the ocean. Dude, look at that. Like, that's what I mean. You don't get that if you're not Jeff Bridges on set. I mean, yeah, no, you won't. That's so sick. All right, there's one shot in here that, for me, tells so much story. I've always and often struggled with being able to communicate a story within a photograph. That might be because a lot of what I shot originally and growing up was landscape photos. You kind of just, it is what it is. It's a beautiful landscape, maybe not so beautiful. As I started getting more of these photo books and diving into other photographers' works, I noticed more story in their photos. By reading their captions and reading their forwards, you learn so much about the artist and what makes them shoot the way they shoot. This particular book, and one of these photos in here, for me, is the exact depiction of storytelling in a photograph. And let me show you. Forget the fact that this is a movie set and this is all fictional, but you know, movies tell stories, and this is a great story in a photograph, be it that you've seen the movie or not. It's from 1988, so you probably haven't. But look at the story this tells. You have the girls waiting to go on stage, their anticipation, the one girl holding other people back. Maybe she's the leader of the group or the performance. Maybe they're nervous, but they're getting ready to go on. They're being introduced. On the right side, you have someone introducing maybe what's about to happen. You also have the audience in anticipation waiting for what's about to happen, both exposed in the dark, exposed in the light. I love this photo. One of the strengths Jeff has in this book and throughout this volume, and there's a second volume, which is probably another video, is he's great at capturing the crew. People hanging out, people doing their jobs, and that also brings you into the scene, makes you feel like you're in this car about to give your lines. Doesn't matter that it's not perfectly in focus. This thing is pre-focused at 11 feet. Obviously playing with your aperture, and depending on what speed film you're using and your distance to things, that's gonna change. But I've learned in shooting film that sometimes some of the coolest shots aren't in focus at all, or mistakes end up being some of the cool shots. This camera particularly really loosened me up. And to just dive into that for 2 seconds, last week I was in Colorado shooting Kaleo at Red Rocks. Here's a shot of JJ on stage that's slightly underexposed, and I happened to get that frame right as they were blasting some red lights. But the way their lights bleed with my exposure on the wide lux, that's an example right there of like a good frame that I'm proud of, but also mixed with a bit of a happy accident because it is a little underexposed. But all the right things kind of work together in the right and wrong way, giving me a really unique photograph that I won't ever be able to replicate. Here's a portrait Tommy Lee Jones in a hallway. Look at all the papers, nice and crisp on the wall. Like, there's so many things happening in this photo. There's so much going on. And you probably miss it all first pass. You just flip through and you're like, oh, that's cool. Very creative use of composition. There's that hallway shot again. Left and right of a hallway. Gary in the middle. So sick. Lastly, Jeff is a master of the selfie with the wide lux. It's a really cool camera to do a selfie with because it's just very unconventional. This guy was banging off selfies with a Panocam in 1998. Needless to say, I had to try it myself, and yes, it does look pretty rad. I don't want to spoil any more of this book because half the fun of getting a photo book is going through it for the first time and seeing and experiencing these photos that the photographers have worked hard for without having seen it all online first. So that is where I will leave it with Jeff Bridges' Pictures Volume 1. If I can sum anything up from what I've learned with this, it's that storytelling is very possible in the most unlikely places when it comes to photography. As hard as it may sound, or as cliche as it may sound, it's actually easier to do than you would think, and it makes a huge difference when the thought is put in before the frame's taken. I got to see so many fresh perspectives on composition when it comes to this book that I've never seen before in all the years I've been doing photography. So being exposed to that as a photographer is like finding a new color. Imagine just digging a hole and finding a new color. That's like, that thought blows my mind. So that was Book Club Episode 1. Thanks for joining us. Hope you had a good time. If you can find this book, highly recommend it. This is the first edition. The second edition is easier to find. I think the first book is better, but we'll save that for another video. The next video, we gotta find out who Ginger is. She sold her copy. Does it look good? Is it weird? I saw this guy on TikTok who gave I kind of dig it.